Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we have an emotional story that will touch your heart. The journey of Ethan, a little boy who faces abandonment in a vast field of garbage in New York. But amidst the desolation, he finds hope in the form of a majestic horse named Hope. Together, they show us that even in the darkest situations, friendship and compassion can make a difference. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any inspiring content like this. And we really want to know which city you are watching from, so leave your comment below. Now, let's discover together the power of hope and the transformation it can bring. What happens when a lonely heart finds an unexpected friend amidst abandonment? In a New York steeped in neglect, the life of Ethan, a little boy only 2 years old, unfolds in a vast field of garbage, where dreams and hopes seem to have dissipated. The gray, heavy, and gloomy sky reflects his pain and loneliness, while his large, innocent eyes, already marked by life's difficulties, observe the indifferent world around him. Wearing dirty, torn clothes, Ethan does not cry. He has learned to accept the brutality of the abandonment that surrounds him. But fate has a surprise in store for him: the arrival of Hope, a majestic brown horse who will become his symbol of compassion and friendship. Hope appears unexpectedly, driven by an inexplicable instinct that leads him to approach Ethan. As he gently touches the boy's arm, the silence that permeates the place is broken, and in that moment, a deep connection forms between them. For Ethan, the friendship with Hope represents more than just companionship. It is the assurance that he is no longer alone in this hostile world. While everything around him remains indifferent, the silent friendship between the boy and the horse illuminates the darkness, offering a ray of hope. Tension rises when Samuel and Jonas, 2 workers from the landfill, find Ethan. Upon realizing the special bond between him and Hope, they approach cautiously and respectfully, creating a moment of anticipation. Ethan, hesitant, allows them to come closer, and this interaction becomes a crucial point in his journey. The boy's grateful look at Hope, before being taken to a new future, is a powerful reminder of the impact that kindness and compassion can have on the lives of the most vulnerable. Ethan's story is not just a struggle for survival. It is a reflection on the essence of humanity in a world that often forgets the needy. The narrative, inspired by works such as The Pursuit of Happiness and Lion, explores themes like abandonment, solidarity, and the importance of caring for the vulnerable. As the story unfolds, the reader is invited to embark on an emotional journey that will touch their heart and make them rethink the value of small acts of compassion. Each challenge faced by Ethan and Hope reveals that, even in the darkest moments, the light of friendship and solidarity can shine, transforming lives and inspiring all who are fortunate enough to witness this connection. Ethan, a little boy who grew up in a world full of neglect, had always dreamed of having a friend who understood him. From his first steps in his garbage home, he felt the absence of true love, which created a deep vulnerability in his heart. The despair of a childhood marked by loneliness shaped his worldview, where each day was a struggle to find warmth amidst the cold. The New York surrounding Ethan was not just a vibrant metropolis, it was a maze of challenges and dangers. The garbage piled around him was not just a symbol of abandonment, but also a reflection of society's neglect. Each new object found was a reminder of the life he could have had, but was denied. The boy faced the brutality of his environment daily, and the pain of abandonment was a constant weight on his small shoulders. With the arrival of Hope, everything changes. The horse not only brings companionship, but also the promise of a new beginning. However, Hope's presence also brings forth an internal conflict in Ethan, who finds himself torn between hope and doubt. The fear of losing this new friend soon transforms into an emotional battle he must face. Their journey together is marked by moments of joy and sadness, where each interaction with the world around them adds a layer of tension to their story. Ethan's first encounter with the landfill workers is a turning point. His hesitation to let them approach reveals his insecurities, but also the first signs that he is willing to open his heart. Each new experience he shares with Hope and the workers brings the promise of a different future, but also the fear that the kindness he has found may be fleeting. Thus, Ethan's story unfolds, leading the reader to a deep reflection on true friendship, compassion, and the life lessons that arise in the most unexpected moments. It is a powerful reminder that even amidst abandonment, the light of hope can shine brightly, challenging the shadows that threatened to engulf the vulnerable. Ethan, the little boy who had found an unexpected friend in Hope, felt himself in a whirlwind of emotions. The joy that had come with the arrival of the brown horse soon mixed with a cloud of uncertainties. Life in the landfill, with its strong smells and lurking dangers, had never been kind, and the thought of losing Hope created an anguish that tightened his chest. The friendship between them flourished, but the fear that it could all end at any moment was like a constant shadow. Samuel and Jonas, the landfill workers, watched their interaction closely. Both were men hardened by life, but the connection between the boy and the horse touched something within them. Samuel, with his tired gaze, remembered his own childhood, marked by abandonment and loneliness. He saw in Ethan a younger version of himself, and this awakened a protective instinct. Jonas, on the other hand, was more skeptical. He knew well the cruel world they lived in and feared that the kindness that seemed to shine between the boy and the horse was fleeting. The tension grew as they decided to take Ethan and Hope to a temporary shelter. The idea of being in a safe place was appealing, but Ethan hesitated. He thought about how his life could change, but he also remembered the pain he felt when he was left behind. The shelter was a promise of protection, but it also represented the possibility of being separated from Hope. The boy looked at the horse, seeking comfort in the big brown eyes. Their friendship was still new, but it had already become an anchor amid the storm. Samuel tried to convey reassurance. He said, "You will like it here, Ethan. There will be food, a warm place to sleep, and other kids to play with." But Ethan couldn't see beyond what he already knew. For him, the idea of a new home was unknown and frightening territory. He remembered days when he had dreamed of having a home, but reality always brought him back to the trash. The fear of being rejected again consumed him. Jonas, noticing the boy's hesitation, decided to intervene. "Ethan, you don't need to be afraid. Here, you and Hope will be safe. We will take care of you." But even with these words of encouragement, the boy felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to believe, but there was a weight of distrust that prevented him from fully opening his heart. The first night in the shelter was a test. While the thick walls protected them from external dangers, Ethan felt suffocated by the new reality. The distant sound of laughter and play reminded him of what he had never experienced. He looked at Hope, who was by his side, and found solace in the horse's presence. But while the other boys made new friends, Ethan felt increasingly isolated, as if loneliness followed him even there. Days went by, and adapting to the shelter proved to be more difficult than he had imagined. The other boys, noticing the special bond between Ethan and Hope, began to distance themselves from him. The friendship that had started to bloom between them was threatened by jealousy and misunderstanding. Ethan felt torn between wanting to fit in and protecting what he loved most. The fear of losing Hope again prevented him from opening up to new friendships. On a particularly tough day, a fight broke out among the boys in the shelter. One of them, Tom, feeling excluded, hurled cruel words at Ethan. "You only have a horse. No one likes you." The words cut like knives, and Ethan felt the pain of rejection once again. He looked at Hope, who whinnied softly, as if trying to comfort him. But what could a horse do against the cruelty of human words? Ethan's reaction was an impulse of defense. He stepped away, tears filling his eyes, but he decided not to let those moments define him. He remembered what Hope meant to him. She was not just a friend, but a symbol of resilience and hope. With that thought, he stood up and walked over to the horse. "Come on, Hope. We need to show them that we are stronger together." Ethan's determination grew, but the path ahead was still filled with challenges. He would have to learn to trust again, not just in Hope, but also in himself. It would be a long and complicated process, but the small flame of hope that had ignited in his heart was not ready to be extinguished. Ethan's journey was just beginning, and he was determined to discover what true friendship could offer him, even amid the chaos surrounding him. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the pain of Tom's words echoing in his mind. What should have been a new beginning was becoming a constant struggle. Each passing day, the pressure to fit in at the shelter grew, and the special connection he had with Hope seemed to be a source of isolation, rather than unity. He felt like an intruder, a shadow that belonged nowhere. The next morning, the routine at the shelter began with the usual hustle and bustle, but Ethan was distant. He sat in a corner, watching the other boys play ball, laughing and having fun. Hope, sensing her friend's sadness, approached and nudged her nose against his hand as a gesture of support. The warmth of the horse's body was comforting, but the loneliness still weighed on Ethan's shoulders. Samuel, who always watched from a distance, noticed the change in the boy. He approached and, in a gentle tone, said, "Sometimes, people can be cruel, Ethan. But you have something they don't have, the courage to be different." The man's words resonated within the boy, but doubt still lingered. Did he have enough courage to face another battle? The tension began to rise when Jonas decided to organize a skills competition for the boys at the shelter. The prize was a cart ride with Hope, an opportunity that everyone desired. Ethan felt his heart race. That competition could be his chance to prove his worth and connect with the others, but it also meant exposing himself to more criticism, more possible rejections. The day of the competition arrived, and Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Tom's words. He entered, determined to show he could be part of the group, but the first task, a racing challenge, turned into a nightmare. The adrenaline propelled him, but as he was distracted for a moment, he tripped and fell, scraping his knee. The physical pain mixed with embarrassment, and he felt hot tears streaming down his face. The boys around him laughed, and Tom's laughter echoed the loudest in his ears. "Did you see? I told you you're not cut out for this." The wound on his knee was insignificant compared to the emotional pain those words caused. He got up, trying to ignore the looks of disdain, and walked away with his head down and a heavy heart. Hope, noticing his despair, whinnied softly and approached him. Ethan placed his hand on the horse's mane, seeking comfort. "Why does everything have to be so hard, Hope?" he murmured, his voice choked. The horse responded with a gentle nudge, as if to say he wasn't alone. But Ethan felt increasingly lost. In the following days, the competition continued, and Ethan withdrew from his attempts to fit in. He spent most of his time with Hope, caring for her and talking about his fears. This routine became a refuge, but the loneliness intensified. Samuel and Jonas watched the situation from afar, worried about the boy's emotional state but unsure how to help. Jonas decided to intervene. He approached Ethan at a moment when the boy was petting Hope. "Hey, Ethan, you're pulling away from everyone. That's not going to help you or the horse." The man's words were direct, but there was genuine concern in his tone. "You need to find a way to show that you're strong. Don't let them knock you down." Ethan looked at Jonas, his heart torn between hope and fear. "What if I fail again? What if they laugh at me?" The vulnerability in the boy's voice made Jonas hesitate, but he replied firmly, "We all fail, kid. True courage is getting back up after you fall." Those words stuck with Ethan, and he began to reflect on his journey. He realized he was letting the fear of failure guide him instead of allowing hope to take him to new places. With this new perspective, he decided he could no longer hide. The next morning, with renewed determination, Ethan approached the group again. He didn't know if he would be accepted, but he was determined to try. Instead of focusing on the criticism, he began to engage in the fun, sharing laughs and trying to connect. The change was not instantaneous. The other boys were still skeptical, but Ethan's resilience began to break down some barriers. He had to face new challenges, new rejections, but also new opportunities. The journey was far from easy, but with hope by his side, he felt that the strength of friendship could give him the courage to weather any storm. And so, with each small step, Ethan began to rediscover who he was and what it truly meant to be part of something greater. Ethan felt more excited about joining the group, but insecurity still loomed like a shadow. He tried to engage in the fun, and gradually, some of the laughter began to turn toward him. But there were still those who looked at him with disdain. The day was sunny, and the energy in the shelter felt vibrant. But inside Ethan, a storm was brewing. During one of the activities, Jonas organized an obstacle course. All the boys gathered, excited to compete. Ethan saw the excitement on their faces and, for a moment, felt he could be part of that joy. He signed up for the race, remembering Jonas's words about courage. However, the memory of his previous fall still weighed on his mind. When the race began, Ethan recalled how he felt while running before. The wind in his face and the adrenaline pulsing through his veins pushed him forward. But as he faced the first obstacle, A barrier of tires, a wave of nervousness hit him. He hesitated, and in that moment, he saw the opportunity slip through his fingers. One of the boys, the same one who always mocked him, ran past and shouted, "Look, the little chick is scared of getting hurt again." That taunt hit Ethan like an arrow. Tom's voice echoed in his mind, making him feel small and insignificant. He sat down on the ground, frustration and pain mixing in his chest. What should have been a moment of triumph turned into yet another reminder of his failures. Hope, who was nearby, approached, sensing the sadness in his gaze. Ethan looked at the horse, seeking comfort. But what he really needed was to face his fears. What he didn't know was that life was about to teach him a valuable lesson. After the race, one of the boys, Lucas, decided to approach Ethan. He was one of the most popular boys in the shelter, and that surprised Ethan. Lucas said, "Hey, I know you don't feel good, but you have to understand that we've all been through bad things. I've been the target of laughter too. The difference is I didn't give up." Those words opened a new world for Ethan. He realized he wasn't alone in his battles. Lucas continued, "It's normal to fail. What matters is learning from it and keeping on trying. What you need is a goal. How about training for the next challenge? I can help you." The proposal made Ethan's heart race. He had never thought he could count on someone to help him. The idea of having an ally was new and exciting. With a hesitant nod, he accepted Lucas's offer. In the following days, Ethan and Lucas trained together. Lucas encouraged him, and with each new attempt, Ethan began to feel more confident. He realized that true overcoming was not the absence of failures, but the willingness to get back up and try again. With Lucas's support, he learned to see obstacles as challenges, not as insurmountable barriers. However, life in the shelter was not just about victories. One day, while they were training, Lucas hurt himself slightly during an exercise. The pain was enough to make him temporarily give up. Ethan was worried, as he now felt responsible for the friendship that had formed. He didn't want Lucas to feel discouraged. With Hope's support, Ethan decided he couldn't let Lucas give up. He started practicing on his own, focusing on his own strength and skill, but also dedicating time to motivate Lucas from afar, telling him about every progress he made. This experience taught him that true friendship was not just about being present, but also about supporting and encouraging each other, even when things got tough. When Lucas recovered, Ethan was ready for the next challenge. He not only wanted to win the competition, he wanted to show everyone that he had transformed. Deep down, he knew that true victory was not the medal, but the friendship and courage he had found along the way. On the day of the competition, nerves took over Ethan again, but this time he wasn't alone. Lucas was by his side, and the renewed confidence propelled him forward. The obstacle course became a symbol of his journey, and as he moved ahead, he realized that every mistake was an opportunity to learn and rise again. When he crossed the finish line, it didn't matter whether he had won or not. What mattered was the change that had happened within him. Ethan had discovered that courage was not the absence of fear, but the determination to move forward, even when the path seemed difficult. And, looking at Lucas and Hope, he knew he had found not just a friend, but a new sense of belonging at the shelter. Ethan was radiant. The feeling of having crossed the finish line filled him with a joy he had never felt before. He looked at Lucas, who was smiling broadly, and at Hope, who was clapping enthusiastically. The victory was not just about the challenge he had overcome, it was about the transformation that had occurred within him. However, this newfound confidence also brought with it new responsibilities and obstacles. In the days following the competition, Ethan began to realize that things were not as simple as they seemed. The euphoria of victory soon faded, giving way to a new kind of pressure. Now, he felt the expectations of others. At the shelter, people looked at him differently. Some seemed in awe, while others, like Tom, watched him with disdain. For Ethan, this was a constant reminder that, although he had made progress, there were still those who doubted him. One afternoon, while in the cafeteria, Ethan sat at the table with Lucas and Hope. They were animatedly discussing the next challenge Jonas had proposed, a relay race. But in the midst of the conversation, Ethan couldn't help but feel a wave of insecurity. What would happen if he failed again? What if Lucas expected too much from him? These thoughts began to create a storm in his mind, and he felt trapped in his own anxiety. Hey, Ethan, are you okay? Lucas asked, noticing the worried expression on his friend's face. Ethan hesitated before answering, his heart racing. He didn't want to seem weak, but the truth was that he was still struggling with his fears. I'm just thinking about the race. What if I can't do it again? What if people start laughing at me again? Lucas leaned forward, his eyes full of understanding. Look, we all have our own fears. But remember what we learned together. The important thing is to try. It doesn't matter what others say. What really counts is that you gave it your all. And I'll be here with you. Lucas's words brought some relief, but the insecurity still lingered. Ethan realized that even with the support of his friends, he needed to face this new challenge differently. He couldn't let external pressure overwhelm him, but he needed to find a way to deal with his own feelings. In the days that followed, he began to adopt a new approach. Instead of focusing solely on the competition and others' expectations, Ethan decided to focus on his own growth. He started practicing breathing techniques and meditation, trying to calm his mind before races. This not only helped him feel more centered, but also made him realize that the real challenge was within himself. In an introspective moment, while walking through the shelter courtyard, Ethan recalled all the times he had felt insecure. He realized that despite all the difficulties, every small step he had taken brought him closer to who he truly wanted to be. He was not just preparing for the race, he was preparing for life. One night, during a nighttime practice, Ethan was back on the track with Lucas. The sky was starry, and the cool breeze brought a sense of renewal. As he ran, he felt that the obstacles were not just physical, but also emotional. Every lap on the track was like a representation of his personal journey. With every step, he remembered that he was not alone. Lucas was there, running by his side. But soon, a new obstacle arose. During one of the practices, Lucas began to feel discouraged. He had noticed that, despite Ethan's progress, his own runs were not going as well as he had hoped. The insecurity that Ethan had faced was now manifesting in Lucas, and Ethan, realizing this, felt distressed. He didn't want their friendship to suffer and knew he needed to act. Lucas, remember how you helped me get back up when I was down? Now it's your turn to rise again. Let's work on this together, Ethan said, trying to encourage his friend. He recalled Lucas's words and realized that friendship was a two-way street. He was determined not to let Lucas give up. Weeks passed, and together they faced the challenges. Ethan worked hard to be a support for Lucas, helping him to find his confidence again. This not only strengthened their friendship, but also made Ethan feel stronger. He realized that, even in the face of challenges, mutual support was essential, and that true overcoming happened when they helped each other. Finally, the day of the relay race arrived. Ethan was nervous, but now he had a new perspective. He knew that what mattered was the journey he had taken, not just the final result. He looked at Lucas in hope, and for the first time, he felt truly ready to face whatever came his way. The race would not just be a competition, it would be a celebration of everything he had learned and all the friendships he had cultivated. Ethan was radiant. The feeling of crossing the finish line filled him with a joy he had never felt before. He looked at Lucas, who was smiling widely, and at Hope, who was clapping enthusiastically. The victory was not just about the challenge he had overcome, it was about the transformation that had taken place within him. However, this new confidence also brought new responsibilities and obstacles. In the days following the competition, Ethan began to realize that things were not as simple as they seemed. The euphoria of victory soon faded, giving way to a new kind of pressure. Now, he felt the expectations of others. At the shelter, people looked at him differently. Some seemed admiring, while others, like Tom, regarded him with disdain. For Ethan, this was a constant reminder that although he had progressed, there were still those who doubted him. One afternoon, while in the cafeteria, Ethan sat at the table with Lucas and Hope. They were animatedly discussing the next challenge that Jonas had proposed, a relay race. But amidst the conversation, Ethan couldn't help but feel a wave of insecurity. What would happen if he failed again? What if Lucas expected too much from him? These thoughts began to create a storm in his mind, and he felt trapped in his own anxiety. "Hey, Ethan, are you okay?" Lucas asked, noticing the worried expression on his friend's face. Ethan hesitated before answering, his heart racing. He didn't want to seem weak, But the truth was that he was still struggling with his fears. I'm just thinking about the race. What if I can't do it again? What if people start laughing at me again? Lucas leaned forward, his eyes full of understanding. Look, we all have our own fears. But remember what we learned together. The important thing is to try. No matter what others say, what really matters is that you made an effort. And I'll be here with you. Lucas's words brought some relief, but the insecurity still lingered. Ethan realized that, even with his friends' support, he needed to face this new challenge differently. He couldn't let himself be swayed by external pressure. He needed to find a way to deal with his own feelings. In the days that followed, he began to adopt a new approach. Instead of focusing solely on the competition and the expectations of others, Ethan decided to focus on his own growth. He started practicing breathing techniques and meditation, trying to calm his mind before races. This not only helped him feel more centered, but also made him realize that the real challenge was within himself. In an introspective moment, while walking through the shelter courtyard, Ethan recalled all the times he had felt insecure. He realized that despite all the difficulties, each small step he had taken brought him closer to who he really wanted to be. He was not just preparing for the race, he was preparing for life. One night, during a nighttime practice, Ethan was once again on the track with Lucas. The sky was starry, and the cool breeze brought a sense of renewal. As he ran, he felt that the obstacles were not just physical, but also emotional. Each lap on the track was like a representation of his personal journey. With each step, he reminded himself that he was not alone. Lucas was there, running alongside him. But soon, a new obstacle arose. During one of the practices, Lucas began to feel discouraged. He had noticed that, despite Ethan's progress, his own runs were not going as well as he had hoped. The insecurity that Ethan had faced was now manifesting in Lucas, and Ethan, realizing this, felt distressed. He didn't want their friendship to suffer and knew he needed to act. Lucas, remember how you helped me get back up when I was down? Now it's your turn to rise again. Let's work on this together, Ethan said, trying to encourage his friend. He remembered Lucas's words and realized that friendship was a two-way street. He was determined not to let Lucas give up. Weeks passed, and together they faced the challenges. Ethan worked hard to be a support for Lucas, helping him regain his confidence. This not only strengthened their friendship, but also made Ethan feel stronger. He realized that, even in the face of challenges, mutual support was essential, and that true overcoming happened when they helped each other. Finally, the day of the relay race arrived. Ethan was nervous, but now he had a new perspective. He knew that what mattered was the journey he had taken, not just the final result. He looked at Lucas in hope, and for the first time, he felt truly ready to face whatever came his way. The race would not just be a competition, it would be a celebration of everything he had learned and all the friendships he had cultivated. The true success was there, in the strength of the connections he had built and in the lessons he would carry into life. The day of the relay race had finally arrived. The atmosphere in the shelter was charged with anticipation. Ethan and Lucas were lined up on the track, surrounded by other competitors and supporters who encouraged the athletes with cheers and applause. The sun was low on the horizon, creating a golden light that illuminated Ethan's face, but the pressure in his chest was undeniable. He felt the weight of expectations on his shoulders, both his own and those of others. As he waited for his turn, Ethan watched his friend. Lucas seemed nervous, his restless fingers fiddling with the band on his arm. It was a reminder that each person's struggle was unique, and that, even amid his own anxiety, he needed to be a support for Lucas. Ethan murmured that he was there with him, a smile of encouragement on his lips. Lucas looked at him, his eyes reflecting gratitude and a bit of relief. When the race began, Ethan's heart raced. He watched the runners ahead of him, each running with determination, but the image of his own journey accompanied him. He remembered the challenges he had faced, the falls he had to overcome, and how, along the way, he had learned the importance of friendship. What truly mattered was not just winning, but the connection he had created with Lucas and Hope. When it was Ethan's turn to run, he felt a rush of adrenaline. He grabbed the baton and shot down the track. The wind hit his face, and the feeling of freedom enveloped him. Each step was a reminder of his inner strength, of everything he had achieved. He recalled Lucas's words and how he had decided to face his own fears. Now, he was determined not to let the pressure take over. But soon, Ethan realized that the other runners were fast. He was losing ground, and the voice of self-criticism began to echo in his mind. He thought he wouldn't make it and that people were laughing at him. However, instead of letting himself be defeated, he took a deep breath and focused. He knew that his true challenge was dealing with his insecurities. He wasn't running just to win. He was running to prove himself, to show that he was stronger than he thought. Back there, Lucas watched anxiously. He wanted to shout words of encouragement, but they got stuck in his throat. He knew Ethan was battling his own demons, and the tension grew in his chest. But then, he remembered what Ethan had done for him. He shouted for Ethan to keep going, his voice echoing down the track. Lucas's words cut through the fog of doubt in Ethan's mind. He looked at the finish line and visualized what was at stake. Not just a medal, but proof that he had overcome his limitations. He picked up speed, feeling his inner strength grow. One step at a time, he was closing in on the finish line. As the finish line drew closer, Ethan felt he was transforming. He was no longer the same boy who hesitated and hid behind his fears. He was a runner, a friend, someone who had learned to value not only victory, but also the support and connection with others. When he crossed the finish line, it was not just the relief of victory that enveloped him, but a wave of gratitude and love for everything he had experienced. Lucas and Hope ran up to him, their faces lit up with genuine smiles. Hope exclaimed that he did it, and Lucas hugged him, almost making him lose his balance. The warmth of friendship was palpable, and Ethan realized that, regardless of the race's result, he had something much more valuable. He had learned that true strength came from within, that vulnerability was part of growth, and that friendships were solidified in moments of greatest tension. As they walked away from the track, Ethan reflected on everything he had learned. The race was just a metaphor for life. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but now he had the confidence and wisdom to face them. What mattered was not what others thought, but how he saw himself and how he could support those around him. The race was not just about winning, it was about the journey, overcoming, and above all, the connections that made life worthwhile. Ethan smiled at Lucas and Hope, feeling that together they could face anything. And so, he felt stronger than ever, ready for the next challenge that life would present him. Still breathing heavily after the race, Ethan felt a mix of emotions flooding his chest. He had crossed the finish line, but what truly mattered was what it meant for him and his friends. The warmth of Lucas and Hope's embrace surrounded him like a cloak, warming his heart and dispelling the last shadows of doubt that remained. Their joy was contagious, and Ethan realized that the victory was not just his. It was theirs. Lucas exclaimed that Ethan was amazing and that he didn't think he could keep up the pace. He had always seen Ethan as someone strong, but now, in light of his friend's triumph, he felt inspired. The pressure he felt before the race had transformed into a deep respect and a new understanding of what friendship could do. Ethan smiled, still trying to process everything he had gone through. He said he wouldn't have made it without Lucas, and that Lucas's words reminded him of what truly mattered. He turned to Hope, who was watching with a radiant smile. Hope, with her vibrant energy, took the floor, saying that this is what they do, support each other, and now they needed to celebrate this victory. The idea of celebrating seemed perfect. The trio headed to the food truck that was set up near the track, where the smell of delicious food hung in the air. As they walked, Ethan reflected on the race and what he had learned. He remembered every step he took, the internal struggle against his insecurities, and the strength he found within himself. Now, beside Lucas and Hope, he felt that this experience had made him stronger and more confident. He knew that, regardless of what happened in the future, those memories in their friendship would be a solid foundation. At the food truck, they ordered sandwiches and drinks, laughing and chatting about the race. Lucas began to share moments when he thought Ethan wouldn't make it, but how, in the end, everything had changed. I didn't know if you could keep up the speed, but when you crossed the finish line, I felt so proud of you, he said, with a sparkle in his eyes. I was surprised too, Ethan replied, laughing. But deep down, I knew I had to do it for us. Your support gave me the strength I needed. He looked at his friends, feeling grateful to have them in his life. It was more than a race. It was a journey that brought them even closer. As they ate, Ethan noticed that the pressure he felt before had disappeared. He no longer saw himself as someone who needed to prove anything to himself or others. He was simply Ethan, a young man who had friends who supported him and who, together, could face any challenge that arose. The race had been a perfect metaphor for life, and he now understood that true victory was not in a prize but in the journey and the connections we make along the way. After their snack, they decided to take a walk around the race venue. The day was coming to an end, and the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange. As they walked, Ethan talked about his plans for the future. "You know, I would like to participate in more races. Not just to compete, but to feel alive like this with you by my side. I want to as well." "We can train together," Lucas suggested excitedly. Hope agreed, and the three of them began discussing how they could prepare better for the next race. The idea of a new challenge excited them, but more importantly, the idea of facing it together made them feel invincible. Ethan looked at his friends, his heart full of gratitude. He knew the race had changed something within him, but what mattered most was that he was not alone. Together, they were stronger, and the friendship they built was the true medal they would carry forever. With a smile on his face, he felt ready for everything life still had to offer. Ethan watched his friends as they walked together, the glow of the setting sun reflecting on their faces. The joy and satisfaction of that race still enveloped him. He had reached a point in his life where he no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. The overcoming he experienced in the race was not just about the act of running, but about discovering his own strength and the importance of the relationships he had cultivated along the way. The journey he and his friends had taken together was a true metaphor for life. A path filled with obstacles, challenges, and above all, moments of unity and mutual support. Ethan realized that each step taken on that track not only brought him closer to the finish line, but also brought him closer to himself. He understood that true victory was not about winning a medal, but rather the realization that, with the support of true friends, there were no limits to what they could achieve. As they talked about future plans, Ethan felt a new determination grow inside him. He wanted not only to participate in more races but also to become an inspiration for others, just as Lucas and Hope had been for him. Each of them carried their own struggles and challenges, and he wished for more people to discover the strength that comes from unity and collective support. The race had been an opportunity to reinvent himself, and now, he was ready to embrace this new phase of his life. Ethan thought about all the moments he had left behind, the insecurities that had accompanied him for so long, the doubts that held him back. He had learned the importance of facing fears instead of letting them dominate him. What once felt like a burden was now becoming a push for action. The race had not only made him stronger physically, but it had also transformed him emotionally. Looking at Lucas and Hope, Ethan felt a wave of gratitude. They were not just friends. They were his chosen family, his foundation in tough times. He knew that together, they could face any challenge that arose. The friendship they had cultivated was a treasure that no obstacle could diminish. With this understanding, Ethan finally forgave himself for the failures of the past, the insecurities that had kept him trapped. He was ready to start anew, with a light heart and an open mind. As the sun set, painting the sky with vibrant colors, Ethan made a promise to himself. He committed to continuing his journey of self-discovery and overcoming, not only in races but in all aspects of life. With every new challenge he encountered, he would remember what he had learned, that true victories are those that connect us to others and help us become the best versions of ourselves. Now, as he reflected on his journey, Ethan wished for others to also recognize the strength that lies in friendship and overcoming. He invited everyone to share their own experiences and reflections on how the support of friends or the pursuit of their dreams had impacted their lives. The importance of taking action, of seeking a new beginning, was within everyone's reach. And so, with a sparkle in his eyes and a smile on his face, Ethan felt ready to face the future, knowing that each step would be taken with his friends by his side. If you also felt inspired by this story, don't hesitate to share your experiences in the comments. Remember, your journey might be the motivation someone else needs to get up and move forward. Like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue bringing stories of overcoming challenges and unity. The time is now. Let's embark on this journey together. What moment of this story touched your heart the most? Was it the silent connection between Ethan and Hope, or the transformation of Samuel and Jonas, who rediscovered compassion amidst chaos? We really want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share your reflections with us. Your perspective is essential to us and helps us spread even more engaging stories. If you know someone who could be inspired by this story, don't hesitate to share the video with them. Together, let's spread moments that inspire and touch the heart. And if you're looking forward to more narratives that capture the essence of life and emotion, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be the first to know when we release new videos that promise to take you on a new emotional adventure. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like. I really want to read your thoughts on the story in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next exciting story.